Now, there's not a lot of things that an entire country can stand together on, but here in South Africa, there is definitely that one thing. It is that we're all fed up with Eskom and its load shedding. Now, most of us can still deal with stage 2 load shedding. 2.5 hours a day without power, we can kind of deal with that. But when we get the notification that Eskom has implemented stage 4, or even worse, stage 6, or even higher than that, then that just kind of ruins your entire day and you have to replan everything. Now, I don't know about you, but the thing that probably grinds my gears the most is that when there's load shedding, of course, the router goes off as well, so no fiber internet or anything similar to that. And the worst thing yet is that for some reason, a lot of times the mobile towers goes offline as well. Now, I'm not sure if that's due to the tower's batteries running out of juice or just being stolen. I think that's the case as well a lot of times. But a lot of times even those go off and then you can't even use your phone to get internet access. Now, that's probably not the case for all of the areas, but especially where I live here on the farm and even when I was still in the city, that was the case majority of the times, and that definitely really messed up my day and my sleep schedule, because now I have to sleep when there's load shedding and work when I have power. For instance, it's currently 4 a.m, so I stood up at 2 a.m, so yeah, that's how my day is going. Well, luckily there is a great and also not too expensive option for us to at least have some internet, and that is these Titan Elector UPS systems. So as you guys can see, they sent over 3 of their smaller units to test out and see how long they last, how long it takes to charge, and just see what else you can actually do with them. Now, Titan does currently have 6 different options, but the larger 3 will only be available next year. But you do still have the 18 watt, the 30 watt, and then also the 100 watt options. The first 2 are quite similar but have different outputs and battery setups, while the third is quite a bit larger, as you guys can see, with double the output and also battery capacity. Now, pricing wise, they're actually not bad at all, with the 2 smaller ones going for around 1,000 rand and the 100 watt larger option for 1,800 rand. Now, if it was me, I would honestly just go for the larger one, just because you don't know what's going to happen with load shedding and Eskom, because a lot of times you have load shedding and then the substation trips as well, and then you're out with an additional 6 to 12 hours without power. So you want to make sure that you're set from the start. So the larger one will just give you that extra little juice to actually get through the day. Now, the Eco and the Eco Pro is quite small and also fairly light. You can easily pop them in your bag and not really feel that and just take it along with you wherever you go. But the NPS is larger, but also actually not too heavy. All 3 has a power button on the front, but the 2 smaller units has a status LED and a 4 LED battery indicator to show the percentage left, while the larger NPS has a small screen showing battery levels, but also the watts and voltages. For the I/O, all of them do have at least one 5-volt USB type A port on the front for charging mobile devices and so on. However, the 100 watt model has 2 type A's and 1 type C port in the front, so you can charge multiple devices at the same time. At the back, the Eco 18 watt model has a fixed 2-point plug, one 5-volt, 9-volt, and a 12-volt outputs. The Eco Pro has the same 5-volt, 9-volt, and 12-volt output, but it gets an additional type C port for charging, again, mobile devices and so on. It does also come with a detachable figure 8 power plug, while the larger 100 watt NPS option has a detachable kettle plug for charging, one 9-volt or 12-volt port, one 5-volt, 4 12-volt 3 amp ports, and then also 5 12-volt ports with a combined max 8 amp output. This gives you the option of actually powering a bunch of different devices, although in the box you only get a single cable, so you might want to get additional ones if you want to run multiple devices. Now, only the NPS, the larger one, has a visible fan for cooling, but it is quiet, and I can't actually remember off the top of my head if I actually ever heard it. Although they can get quite a bit hot when you're charging, so make sure that there's at least some air ventilation where you actually put them. Now with all three of them, you do get the Y power splitter along with 3 connector tips. The Y splitter allows them to power not only your router but also a fiber box if needed at the same time. They also feature short circuit, overload and overcharge protection, which is definitely needed for all of the load shedding and the constant power surges going on with that, just to protect your router and other devices as well connected to them. Now, I'm not a battery expert, but it's also good not to let the battery die each time, as the batteries have a charge life cycle, after which the battery degrades quicker, or it could just die at that point as well. Again, I'm not an expert, but you would want to keep it above at least 25%. That again is why I would recommend going for the NPS 100 watt option, especially because I don't see an end to load shedding anytime soon, and most likely it'll probably get worse even. Now finally, how long did that actually last? So I did do a couple of tests with different routers, devices and so on. I'm currently on the farm, so I wasn't able to actually test it with a fiber and the fiber box at the same time, so unfortunately that will not be in the test, but hopefully all of the other tests will make up for that. Now 2 things to keep in mind is that the times can be out by up to 30 minutes, as I wasn't sitting in front of the UPSs for the entire duration of the test, so it could be slightly out. Also, how long the UPSs will last will depend on your router's power draw and how much you actually use it, so just keep all of that in mind for all of the testing and also for your use case. So firstly, I did test it with my Huawei B315 LTE router. This router had an average power draw of 4 watts, which is lower than average, but is still a popular option, so I did want to include that and actually still use it for a backup. With the B315, both the Eco and the Pro lasted around 8.5 hours, and the NPS around 15 hours, more than double the advertised time. So definitely no complaint there for a backup. Now the second test was with the Huawei B618, which is more powerful at an average draw of 7 watts. Both the Eco and the Eco Pro lasted roughly 5 hours, while the NPS lasted around 10 hours. For the third test, it was again used with the B618, but this time charging a mobile device at the same time. Here the Eco lasted around 3 hours, charging my phone's 4000 mAh battery from 0 to 85%. The Eco Pro lasted a little longer at around 3.5 hours while charging my other phones with a 4500 mAh battery from 35% to full, plus an additional phone to actually drain the unit entirely. Then lastly, the NPS lasted around 8 hours, with me constantly needing to switch out all of the different phones and use the battery up again to actually do a constant power draw with all of the different devices. So yeah, that was a bit of a mission as well. Also, for another test, which is more applicable just for me, and I didn't really test how long it will last, I can actually use the NPS to power my camera. So I do have a couple of cameras here, and they can run off of a battery pack. So I was able to actually power them, not all of them, but 3 of my cameras. I can actually connect to the NPS and just power it through that. And I do also have a battery like light. I can actually use that to still film videos. So that's actually really useful. I have one unit that I can use for pretty much all of my work, internet, and then also cameras and so on. So I'm actually pretty happy using one of these for that as well. Now I will say that the advertisement on the box says that the NPS will last around 7 hours with a wireless router, but from my testing it lasted way longer than that. So again, it's all going to depend up to your router, your use case, and how many different other devices that you use it with. So again, just keep that in mind, but you can at least expect around 7 hours from the larger one and 5+ from the smaller units. Also, before getting one of these, go check out what voltage actually your router uses. I remember with the ASUS ROG Gaming AX 11000, that thing was a 19 volts and it used quite a bit of power around it. It had a power break of 45 or 60 watts. So make sure that the voltage of your router is in check for the 12 volts, because some of them is a bit more. But now moving on for charging, all three of them were extremely quick, with the Eco and also the Eco Pro charging between 1 to 1.5 hours, and the MPS are roughly 2.5 hours. So even with stage 6 load shedding, you will be able to charge them full quite quickly to use them again. But now that's pretty much it. If you guys are looking for something to get you through load shedding or just the power outages in general, then these ones will be the perfect option for you. But now, to my knowledge, these ones are unfortunately only available for here in South Africa. But if you do live in the US or the UK or so on, there should be something similar in your area, so there is other options for you there. But for here in South Africa, these ones are just a perfect fit. Again, are not too expensive, and something that you're definitely going to need with all of the load shedding and Eskom going forward, and possibly no end in sight. And if you're not planning to go like full solar and massive inverter setup and so on, these ones are definitely an option for you then. But now that's pretty much it for our video. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and comment like always. If you guys want to get it for yourself, I will leave a link in the video description, and I will check all of you guys next time. Cheers, guys.